The good stuff stays.
So does that mean that writing can be taught, can be learned?
It can be learned, but I'm not sure it can be taught. It's a self-taught kind of thing. I think the best writers are voracious readers who pick up the cadences and the feel of narration through a number of different books, and you begin by maybe copying the style of writers that really knocked you out. I mean, as a teenager, I read a lot of H.P. Lovecraft, so I wrote like H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah. And in my 20s, I read a lot of Ross MacDonald.
The thing with reading widely and reading more than you think you need to read. When I was querying agents 12 years ago, I got rid of my TV for, I think it was 4 years, and I just upped my reading. And I never knew, if I read 100 books in a year, I never knew which ones would push me forwards. And it was always like 2 or 3 books that really pushed me forwards and gave me some extra confidence that I really badly needed at that stage, still do now. You never know which out of the 100 they're going to be, so you have to read a lot in order to find those specific gems that are personal to you at that stage in your learning process.
Raymond Chandler, so I wrote like those guys. But little by little, you develop your own style. I have a routine because I think that writing is self-hypnosis, and you fall into a kind of a trance if you do the same passes over and over. So I'll get up, have some breakfast with my wife, watch CNN, and then I'll make my pot of tea and sit down and write for about 3.5 hours. I started with short stories.
I hate to agree with him on everything, but it's kind of, I feel the same thing. It's like a daydream for me. It's like a fever dream. It's like an exorcism, getting an idea out onto a page. And that process, that migration of idea to laptop screen, I'm just trying to make that process as clean as possible so that it comes out relatively whole.
I was 18, sold my first one when I was about 20, and produced pretty much nothing but, well, I wrote a couple of novels, but they were not accepted, and a lot of them were so bad that I didn't even bother to revise them. But the short story...
I have one apprenticeship novel locked in a drawer that I've told my wife she can never, if I get hit by a bus, which is rare considering I live off grid in the woods, it's unlikely, but if I do, please don't send it to my agent. Please don't sell it. It's the book that I learnt from, and all of us have stuff, material locked in a drawer. It's quite healthy. Everything you write is not meant to be read.
We're making money, and I got very comfortable with that format, and I've never wanted to leave it completely behind.
You hear some people who write short stories talk about the fact that in their mind they have these massive novels written about these characters, but really what you see on the page is just a sliver of a story that's in their brain that they could write a novel about it in most cases. Is that true?
It is true, and what happens to me a lot of times is I will start out saying this would be a terrific short story idea. And
something I find really useful is the idea that every side character, every tiny character, every walk-on character, they think they're the hero of the story. They think that they are the protagonist. For them, it's their story, right? It doesn't matter that you've decided to tell the story from someone else's point of view. For them, it's their story. They're the hero. And that's really useful to keep in mind. Like, everybody needs to be fully fleshed out and have real motivations.
Balloons and becomes a novel. Misery started as a short story, and Gerald's Game started as a short story. Those were things that I thought would be small and grew to a size where they would be a novel. For a long time, I felt like movies were a lesser medium because it's like skating. It's all on the surface. Every now and then, some movie will be reduced to doing a voiceover, you know, where this character is talking, and I can just kind of go,
to get the interior life.
Yeah, and I just kind of go, no, you've clearly mistaken this medium for something.
This is one thing I love about books. I love movies. I'm a big cinephile, but books, you're putting the pictures in your own head. You're making the movie. And that's why books, I think, can be more scary and more immersive. A more immersive experience, a more virtual reality-like experience than a movie. It's because it's your movie, nobody else's. And you're putting all of your own neuroses and your own anxieties into there, your own hopes and dreams. This is the magic of a book. And I think, I'm hoping that in the next 20 years, as technology becomes more and more addictive, more and more overwhelming, people will come back to books and also vinyl records and CDs and DVDs, because there's something special about that personal relationship between you and the person who created that piece of work.
It's not. But I came to realize that films have a language of their own, and you have to learn that language. And it isn't enough to say, well, I've watched movies my whole life. You have to write a couple. I started, I think I was probably, I'd been writing novels full-time for about a year and a half, and I thought to myself, I want to learn how to write movies. I want to try it anyway. So I got a book.
I have 9 books currently in development to be made into movies and TV, and I don't feel ready yet to write a script or to write a screenplay. It's not. I feel like I'm still learning to write a book. So for me, I'm not ready yet, but one day I might be. I don't know. For me, it's like a whole different world. And I love the privacy and the solitude of writing a book. Here in the woods in Sweden, alone, it not being terribly collaborative at the beginning, I enjoy that very much. It's maybe a sad admission, but it's the honest truth.
It was about writing screenplays, and I read it. But at the end, it had a sample screenplay from The Twilight Zone. It showed me what the form was, and that was something real that I could. So I took the Ray Bradbury book, Something Wicked This Way Comes, and I wrote a screenplay, and I learned what I was doing. It wasn't for anybody but me. And then a little while later, I wrote a book called The Shining, and it was my 3rd book, and I got contracted.
The beginning scene of The Shining, of the movie adaptation of Stanley Kubrick, which I know Stephen King doesn't like particularly, but was not a huge fan of. But the opening scene with the music, the jarring operatic music, and that drive, there's 3 people in the car driving into the mountains, away from safety, towards danger, towards the story. I find that's what's going through my head at the beginning of every single story I write, regardless of where it's set or who's in it. It's that idea of going away from the familiar, and often the urban, and a small cast of characters going towards something that hasn't happened yet.
Rights to write the first draft screenplay for that. And I did do that, and I found out later that Stanley Kubrick, who had got the rights through Warner Brothers, had already determined that he and a lady named Diane Johnson were going to do the screenplay for The Shining. So they basically, my screenplay went in and they said, no, this won't do, and then they went on to what they really wanted to do, which was fine. I wasn't angry or upset. You're not. After a while, you get thousands of rejection slips before you break through. You kind of get used to that, and it's just part of the game. But the thing is, you learn. You learn little by little. So
you release books differently now than you used to? In that, like, do you have a different?
Just briefly, again on rejection, just how normal it is and how you become like Teflon coated after a while. It doesn't bother you at all, because it doesn't mean that your work isn't good enough. It means that there isn't a good enough match between you and your individual piece of work and the person who's looking to buy it and make it into something. That match isn't quite there, and it's good. It's good for both parties to step away and not do that deal. I've had instances where I could have pushed a deal through, and I just said, no, it's not. Let's not make this happen when it's not natural. It's not organic. It's not. Everyone's not super excited. It's not a perfect fit. Let's just not do it, because it's not worth forcing it. You're just going to have problems further down the line.
The definition of what a successful book is, or on the eve of a book's release, do you pay a special kind of attention to how it will be received or how it's being reviewed?
I think that if you spend too much time worrying about what the audience is going to like, that they're not going to like anything that you do. I just look for ideas that I really enjoy, something that I really want to live with for a while, like the story about the people under the dome. And I get into it.
You can't second guess your readers, and you can't second guess publishing trends and all of that. Especially for someone like me who writes a book, it might take 5 years. Publishing trends have come and gone. It's irrelevant. And trying to second guess your readers, it's just like, it's an absolute waste of time. Exactly like Stephen King says, you have to be excited about the piece of work yourself. In that singular way, you have to be excited about that story. You want to tell it. I always said that if I wasn't published, I would still write a first draft every year. And I think I would do that just for that creative explosion, that just like getting that idea out of me and being excited about that idea, you know, scaring myself a little or exciting myself a little, thrilling myself a little. I love that feeling. And that's hopefully then that translates to your readers as well.
Most of the time, and then I just have a ball. I never finished a book and felt like I'm glad that's done. I usually finish a book and say, geez, I don't want to say goodbye to these people. And if the people...
That's true. I missed my characters, but I am exhausted at the end of a first draft. So I would say that I differ to him here. I'm exhausted after a first draft, mentally, emotionally, especially exhausted, drained, and I'm always relieved when I finish the first draft, and quite sad as well.
Read it, feel the same way, then I'm really happy.
Look, you know, a lot of these interviews, the question that's the worst is people will say, where do you get your ideas? I don't know where I get them, you know, and if I did, man, would I tell you? I mean, Jesus, they've been good to me. All I know is...
And the truth is, ideas are important. It's good to have great ideas, but they're not the most difficult part of the process. The most difficult part of the process is the interpretation of your great idea and the layering of it with emotion and with truth, and then making that a consumable, readable novel that's fun and beautiful to read. That process is really, really difficult. And writing is not just ideas. The idea is really important, but then anybody can have an idea. It's about making that idea happen so that it's shareable.
That I sit down and I turn on the machine, and there's always that first 10 minutes that's like smelling a dead fish or walking into a monkey house. And then something will click a little tiny bit, and that leads to something else. And it's like choo 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 choo.
That feeling is magic, and often I'll have it at the end of page 1 or sometime in chapter 1, and I will say to myself, either out loud or in my head, I'm in. That's what I say, I'm in. And that means I am in the story. It has momentum, exactly like he describes. It has the wind behind the sails, like this thing is going to go. And that's the most wonderful feeling in the world. And up until that point, it is terrifying because it might collapse and fall apart.
It's going faster and faster, and then you hit this kind of escape velocity. You're gone. The world, the normal, mundane, sort of stupid world where you got to do the breakfast dishes and you got to make the beds, you know, and you got to worry about getting the kid to the dentist. All that's gone.
When I'm in that zone and it's a fever dream and it's so exciting, and it also can be terrifying and bad and hard, but when I'm in that little escape velocity moment, then even when I'm doing the practical things like doing the dishes and fixing my car and chopping wood, I'm not even thinking about any of those things. Like I'm in a different place mentally. I'm in the next scene or the scene after that. That's really exciting as well, because then you know, again, it has legs, it has momentum, it's going to go.
But there's a place where you have to walk away from it because it's so kind of addictive that otherwise you might just sit there and skip meals and just be lost in that world, and you wouldn't want to do that.
I hope this has been fun and useful. I think I'm going to do another one of these. Like and subscribe if you find this at all interesting, and I'll be back. Thank you for joining me.